Good morning and welcome to a very special edition of Money Truth Moments. And if you haven't guessed it, we have some very weird folks on screen today, to say the least, right? Anyway, welcome to Money Truth Moments with our very own finance cat, Judy Copenbarger. How are you?
I had bagels and lox this morning for breakfast and something happened. I don't know. Something crazy happened. I'm feeling a little bit, feline today. Why not
Awesome.
have fun with the theme of the day, right?
Right. How often does the show land on October 31st, right? Exactly.
Very fun.
So folks, welcome. If you're just joining us for the very first time, this isn't our norm, but we thought we'd do something fun today being Halloween. So welcome. If you're not following Judy, please do so at judycopenbarger.com. I'm sorry, .today. My bad. Old habits, right?
Yeah.
Follow her at
.com's the old stuff. This is the newly improved .today. More relevant, more current. I love it.
That's right. So make sure you're following her also on social media as well. We've got a great show for you guys today, a fun show. But rather than jumping right into it, I've got a very quick question to ask you, Judy.
Yep.
So I want you to take a stroll down memory lane, and I want you to think back when you were a kid, right? And I want you to think about what's one Halloween that really stands out for you?
Oh, I just have this collective memory of probably 3, 4, maybe 5 years. I never liked the spooky, scary, goblin-y, witchy things, but I was always kind of a fun, something light. But I have this collective memory of going with my grade school friends, probably first through fourth grade, second through fifth grade, something like that. And we did the old trick or treat thing, house to house, up and down the streets with our pillowcases.
Wow.
And we would come home, either their house or our house, way after dark. It must have been 5:30 or 6. And we dump out our bags and sort through everything. And I remember sorting, you got the good ones over there and the yucky ones over there. And I don't know what that is over there. And back then, the parents would come and check to make sure there wasn't something bad in there, like razor blades or something. Do you remember that? Did you have that too?
I remember it. Yeah, absolutely.
And
you couldn't touch it until they went through it. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes, there was like the M&Ms and Reese's were gone. And I knew it because I'd already classified them all. It's like that pile was bigger. The chocolate pile was bigger before. But I just remember that. And we just had so much fun as kids. It was a different world then, sadly.
Yeah.
But that's the big collective memory I have. How about you? Do you have a special memory that stands out?
I remember, so I went to private school and I remember this vividly I think it was 7th or 8th grade. Back then you were allowed to do Halloween costumes and go to school dressed up and all of that. So there was different contests on there. And I remember, I think it was for either the ugliest or creative or something, but I remember painting my face half one color, half the other color. And I won. But that's not the funny part, right? So this is weird. What the funny part and the most embarrassing part was that right after that, we had football practice. So I had to wear this stuff in football practice, sweating and all this stuff just going right in my eye. I'll never forget that. So by the time I got home, I was like, yeah, I don't even want to go trick-or-treating, man. I got to get all this gunk off and everything else too. But that sounds off.
You may have started something because you see that all the time now at the sports games where they do the colors. Yeah. And I don't remember seeing that before, as a kid. So yeah. I think you ought to take credit for that trend.
Hey, I will own it. I started the trend. There you go. I'll own that.
Awesome. I love that. That's so much fun. A little bit later when we had our kids, I remember one Halloween, now that we're talking about memories, where the movie The Dalmatians came out, the 101 Dalmatians. And so I made outfits for all 5 kids and us. And we were Dalmatians. So we were head to toe white with black spots all over. And then we had the little nose and the whiskers and the whole thing. But I just remember that was a lot of fun. And it must have been quite a sight because it looks like a pretty big family, now. But I remember one year we did that. That was a lot of fun to celebrate that movie.
That's awesome. Fun.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can talk about a lot of these events growing up and all that stuff too. But I want to make sure that we also get to one of our questions that some of the folks have been looking forward to talking about. is that we kind of left off a little bit talking about financial goals. So, one of the things I want to get us back on track is what are some common financial goals people have, and how can they plan to achieve them?
Oh, that's a two-part question. Common goals, I think everybody's kind of the same. The American dream. I want to have a house or maybe a second house. I want to have a car. For a lot of people, it's funny because it's not that important to me. I just need good wheels that are reliable. But some people like every year or two to get the new model and, have it smell clean and nothing's going to break and all of that. So there's a lot of car goals when we're working on goals. Of course, people think about, I've had a baby now. I want to pay for college, and that's going to be a chunk. Paying for either private school or college. Educational goals is often a consideration. A lot of people have a goal around travel. They have a special bucket list trip they want to do, an anniversary trip. They want to take the whole family to Hawaii, or they want to do a special trip to Paris or something. And other people travel all the time. And so they have a goal every year where there's just a set of amount of money prepared and set aside for travel wherever they want to go that year. So travel goals are a big one. Those are probably the main ones. So to answer your question, that's what I see quite a bit. But the second part of your question was, how can planning help you get there? What can
Right.
planning do for you? And just like anything, if you have a plan, if you have a template, you have step-by-step instructions, what I need to do to get there, you'll achieve the goal. Maybe not quite on time, although proper planning can help you do that. But life happens, especially financial things happen. So I think if you have a very specific goal with a very specific date and a purpose for the goal, that is going to double your chances, if not more, to helping you get it. And then if you have several goals, you want to prioritize them. So if I have four goals and one is just going to make my life work, getting to go to Paris and walk across the bridge where you put the locks on, all of that stuff in
Mhm.
Europe. Um, maybe that's the one. And I don't need to have a new car every few years if I can do this bucket list, that I have. So I think one mistake that people make though is they have a chunk of money that they save and they don't have specific goals with names and dates attached to them.
Right.
And they think, I have all this money. I can just do whatever. But you can only spend every dollar one time. And so I think a common mistake is I've got plenty. I can do whatever I want. And they'll start achieving goals that weren't that important. And then they run out of money before the big one. So I think the exercise of specific goals, prioritizing them first as you're achieving and accumulating money, is really smart. So I had some clients just recently. We were working on their financial roadmap experience, and they had that in mind. They're like, "Oh, well, we've got several $100,000, and we want to do these things." And when we got real specific about what that money needed to do and the dates that they wanted to achieve the goals by, they were short and they had no idea. They felt like there was plenty. And so we refined a little bit, reprioritized, and then they were able to get everything done on time. So I hope that answers your question. The common goals and how do we get there? That's the best advice that I could give about that.
And the one of the things that you also brought up, and it would be a great reminder to talk about it. You're right. Sometimes we get a let's just say we have an inheritance, we get a pile of money, but you don't really know, which you've talked about buckets. So refresh our audience memory regarding buckets. Why is that important, especially when we're planning?
Yeah, you can call it buckets or you could call it circles or you could call it separate accounts or whatever it is. But you want to make sure that you always have, when we're looking at goals, you have time frames in mind, what I call the horizon. By when will I need to achieve that? That's why we want that specific date. So there are always things that you're going to need, every week, every month, your basic expenses, roof over your head. And that's kind of your immediate bucket. And that should be your cash reserves. You want to make sure there's money for a rainy day and all these little things that just come up in life. The second bucket that you want to have, the second circle or the second allocation is going to be for mid-range, like 3 to 5 years from now. And that might be an upcoming trip you're going to take, or it might be a vehicle that I'm going to replace or upgrade or fix. So those kind of goals might be more of a mid-range, they're soon, but not forever. from now. And then you've got your long-term goals. So you want to have a bucket or a amount of money set aside that's going to take care of goals that you have that are later. And some of those might not be a goal that happened just one time. You might have a goal of um, like freedom or a goal of security. And what that means is every month you have enough money to show up to do your life later, maybe when you're not working anymore, or choose not to work if you don't want to. And so, like, people talk about that as like a retirement fund or a retirement income, a flow that, you don't have to go and create anymore. But you got to remember that's an ongoing goal, and you got to plan it right. Like, am I going to live 5 years, 10 years, or 35 years? Right. And how much does that really look like? So, those are things to think about when it comes to the buckets or the different allocations of money that you're saving.
Although based on today, I would dare to call them cat bulls, right? Based on the thing. There you go.
That's so
For
funny.
sure. Uh, okay, so we're talking about taking a look at this very closely and reviewing. How often should a financial plan be reviewed? And I'm going to actually, it's going to be a two-part question. So, how
Mhm.
often should a financial plan be reviewed and updated, right? And what key life events should we prepare for or update on?
Mm. Well, I think it's a very personal thing how often you should review, but at least once a year. In our practice, we revisit all the goals 3 times a year, every 4 months. And so we're refining, refining. And sometimes there's more or less to do. It's like, okay, you're on track next item. But I think if it's, if you're doing this at home on your own, once a year would be great. When you have all the papers out, like this time of year, we just finished everybody doing their taxes. This year was a little bit unusual here in California. Everybody had a free extension, which was awesome. But I think when you pull your taxes together, that's a time when a lot of people are thinking about, what were my expenses last year? What's going to change this year? What do I need to provide my accountant? How did my accounts do? Did I make money? Do I need to reposition it? When you're thinking about all those kind of financial things anyway, that might be a good time to reset your goals and just have it as part of your packet. What your all your tax stuff is together, same folder. Here are my goals. Let's review them. And is there anything that we want to refine or correct or amend or add or reprioritize? It doesn't take long once you get started. It's just a matter of staying on track. And it's like, wow, I realized last year I was going to save so much money toward this goal or toward retirement or whatever it was. And we overshot that. So do we want to correct, or are we just going to, retire early now? Or maybe we undershot it because something happened. We had a car repair we didn't expect, or the dryer went out, and sometimes those things come in threes, they say. Full moon,
Mhm.
like this week we're having that full moon and Halloween. And so sometimes all these things kind of pile up. And so that might throw you off track and you go, wow, last year we had a goal of saving this much for these goals. We were a little short. Maybe we could step it up, belt tighten a little bit and step it up to get back on track, because the dates are important to us. By 60 or 65 or 70, want to be able to do those things. So that might be helpful. And then the second part of your question was
What
things in life that happen that make you need to review.
Yeah, key life events that often sometimes come
Mm.
unexpectedly, or you should be planning for it, but you don't. You know what I mean?
Oh, well, definitely health events, especially later in life where we expect things to change in our bodies and there's a little more maintenance, a little more weeds in the garden. And I'm kind of in that season now. It's like, oh, yeah, in your 20s and 30s. It's funny at our every 10 years we have a high school reunion. I'm from a little town, so everybody still knows each other. And in our 20s and 30s, like the 10 and 20-year reunion, it was like all about what we're going to do with our life, and we're going to take the world by the tail, and we're going to have these great families and do all this great stuff. And I stuck with that plan. I feel like I'm still doing that. Not everybody was able to do that. And then come 30-year anniversary, it's all about the kids and the grandkids and what they're doing. And then the reunion since then, it's like kind of like the health issues. Well, I got the eye thing and the back thing and the knee thing. It's kind of like
Falling apart. Yep.
health issues take over the conversation. And if you look at it, people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, we don't mean to, but there seems to be a little bit more on the calendar that is health related than used to be. you know. And when we're young, it's like, yeah, you do a checkup once a year and do what they tell you. But when you get a little bit more, a little bit more veteran at life, there's more to maintain. And so there's more appointments and checkups and blood tests and, examining all the parts and all that stuff. It's just crazy. But that's something for sure that people want to prepare for. If that changes, if there's care that's needed, if there's surgery or holistic alternatives that are needed. Some people really enjoy the healthy thing. They want to be able to have money for things like chiropractic or supplements that are not covered on traditional insurances. And that takes money, to go buy what you need for juicing, that takes money. And so that might be a consideration for folks to think about health related. Other things that can happen is, what if you're suddenly single? Didn't expect it. It came sooner in life than you thought. Um, are we losing a pension? Are we losing a social security income? Are we losing a resource that was part of the cash flow that we were counting on that now is no longer there? We want to plan for that. You see all these folks, firefighters and teachers and public employees, um, uh, law enforcement officials. So they have all this pension. And if both couples are relying on that pension, because sometimes it's as much as they were making in their later years, right? Those pensions can be really nice. If it's not set up where it's pension provided for both spouses and the one that we thought would live forever doesn't, are we still going to be okay? That might require some planning, some goal setting. Absolutely.
So when we're talking about health issues too, it always reminds me of the Tin Man, right? We got to get a little oil here, a little oil there, make sure we're able to move and all
Yep,
that stuff as well too. So
absolutely.
speaking of, we're talking about preparing and all that. It's that time of the show. So now I know we got a great Halloween challenge, so I can't wait to hear this.
Trick or treat time. I love it. I love it. Well, the challenge that just comes to mind for me as we're thinking about things in life that happen that maybe we didn't plan for, we didn't think about. I think that's worth sitting down over a cup of spice cider or something really fall amazing, maybe your favorite, coffee, latte, or whatever. Um, and just consider, what is that life change that might happen? Suddenly single or widowed or a big move, maybe an upsize or a downsize that happens. Maybe something happens in your family where now you're the caregiver or you're the financial provider to make sure that that care is delivered. If something like that happened, it's so much better to see it coming. Although it's never going to happen here. I don't want to jinx anything and think about that or plan for that. I think you should. I think you should go there because life does happen. And if it hasn't happened in your family, it's happened in a family that you're close to, that you're aware of. So I would say pen and paper. You always want to have pen and paper. Just write down maybe the top three threats that you see that might really blow up your plan financially, that you haven't prepared for, or that you really want to make sure doesn't become a threat or a barrier between you and your ability to achieve your goals. What are those three things that might really mess you up? And then next to it, write down, what can I do to make sure that threat doesn't become a reality and implode my financial plan, my financial future? What can I do? Who should I talk to? Should I call HR? Should I have a discussion with my insurance agent on some kind of an insurance? Um, should I talk to my spouse about plan B? Should we make sure we know what our retirement and pension benefits are and whether we're going to have enough? What is our number to make sure that we know we're going to be secure in later years? If we don't end up suddenly single, if we do live forever, some people say, I'll plan till 80. I don't think that's enough. We plan for 100 here. And the younger and younger our clients get, it's funny, the older I get, the younger the captains, pilots look.
Mhm.
They all look like they're 16 years old. It's crazy. The younger the police officers look, it's like, are you old enough to drive?
Yeah,
It's just,
exactly.
it's funny how our perspective changes. But your challenge is just this, what are the threats? that I need to plan for. What can I do about that? And then just take action. That's your challenge.
All right, folks, you've heard the challenge. Please make sure if you have any questions, you let us know as well too. And remember that we are here every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. The replays on Thursday at 8 p.m. Judy, any last, or I should say, Kitty Cat, any last words before we part?
No, just make it a great week. But right now I'm just really suddenly having an urge for some salmon. I think I'm going to go get some salmon. That sounds good.
All right, folks, make sure you're following Judy at judycopenbarger.today. Follow her social media links. And until next week, we'll see you guys then. Be
All
safe
right.
today.
Enjoy the holiday. Bye-bye.